Okay, everybody, welcome back to Who's Your Band. I am joined by my co-host, as always, Mr. Sean Morton. How are you, Sean?
Wonderful, Jeffrey. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm very good. You know what it is? I want to get to this. I want to get to our guest because I'm excited for this guy, okay? Because he was part of the David Lee Roth Band, Mr. Big, Winery Dogs, Sons of Apollo. He is Buffalo's favorite son. Give it up for the incredibly talented Mr. Billy Sheehan.
You're very kind. You're too kind. I'm going to live up to that now.
Yeah.
Buffalo, huh?
I love Buffalo.
Yeah, originally from Buffalo. I left there summer of 85.
So in the summer, it was only snowing about 32 inches there, right?
Yeah, actually, we got some snow here in Nashville, so we're very unusual for us. It happens to this degree, it happens about every 20 years, I understand. But in Buffalo, I remember being a kid and pushing snow with my chest to get to school.
Oh, Billy, I remember one time for an old job, I had to go to Buffalo for a week, and I parked my car at the hotel. It was 53 degrees. It was beautiful. I woke up the next morning to 16 inches of snow under my car.
It happens often.
I used to, me and Jeff are both comics, and I have an ongoing joke that I do about cities that I work in all the time that I hate, and Buffalo is one of them. And I always say how Buffalo is like one of the worst places in the world. I said, but it's next to one of the greatest places, Niagara Falls. I said, but if you notice, there's only one little thin wire that goes around the entire falls that prevents you from falling in.
Yeah, it's scary.
I say it's like God was telling the city of Buffalo, look, I'm not telling you to kill yourself, but I'm not going to make it hard for you either.
Yeah, they say if you don't like the weather in Buffalo, just wait a minute.
Basically, yeah.
It'll change. But yeah, it was, when I left, I grew up there, of course, in the 60s and 70s, playing constantly, late 60s, into the 70s, then into the 80s. And it was an amazing music town. It was a great entertainment town. Buffalo was actually a super important city before the Erie Canal because everything had to go through Buffalo to get past the falls that you mentioned, to get to the St. Lawrence Seaway to Europe from all the Great Lakes. So it was when they made the Erie Canal, they decided to have it end at where New York City is. I don't think it was called New York City at the time. It might have still been New Amsterdam. I don't know.
No, it was New York City. It was New York City.
Okay.
Yeah, so, it actually opened up commerce for New York City to open up things to the Midwest.
Exactly right. Yeah, so New York City boomed as a result of that. But Buffalo was an important place. There's a little punk club down by the Niagara River. This seems to be a recurring theme here, called McVan's. And it used to be a supper club in its glory days, and now it was a graffitied punk club. But I just got photos recently of Hendrix playing there back in the day before it was a punk club, and also and before he was the Jimi Hendrix Experience too, and also Sinatra and Tony Bennett. Everybody sang there. It was a an amazing entertainment town.
Yeah, there's a great rock strip club in Tonawanda called Alexander's.
I think that was after my time. That was probably after your time. Yeah.
I will say one thing about Buffalo that I do love is that whenever I would go up there, I would always be subjected to some amazing new rock music. And it was only when I went to Buffalo and I realized because they were getting a lot of Toronto radio stations coming through.
Very true. Yeah. There's a cross-pollination happens there for sure.
It was amazing because there's probably 5 or 6 bands that there's a band called Default that had like one big hit in the US. Yeah. But they played them constantly because they were a Canadian band. And it opened up like a world of new music for me every time I would go up there.
Yeah, we're close to Toronto, and Toronto is really it was a great music city. And we used to play there a lot back in the day. We'd go over the Peace Bridge and play all the Canadian cities, and it was always a riot. They always sold beers that were like extra giant sized bottles and had more alcohol in it too. That's right. That led to a lot of consequences.
Unless you have one of your dumb friends like I do, whenever we would go up to Canada and we would always order like Labatt's or like, a Molson, and it'd be like $2 and $3. And he would go, "Can I have a Coors Light?" And it'd be $8. And he'd have no idea why. I'm like, "Because it's an import, you idiot."
When in Rome, do as the Romans do.
Exactly.
Buffalo is still a great rock city. I work up there. I do a lot of clubs up in Buffalo. And when you do Rob's Comedy Playhouse, they promote it on the rock station. And there's several rock stations up there.
Yeah.
And so, the people come out, they're kind of like crowd, Sean.
Oh yeah. It's working class town.
To the earth, and the rock is, it's very different than doing the city. But Billy, when I told people that you were coming on the show, like we were excited to have you. I mean, both Sean and I, huge music fans. Everyone's like, oh man, Billy Sheehan. They were so excited. They're like, this guy, he's the Eddie Van Halen of the bass. Why are you the Eddie Van Halen of the bass?
Well, I don't know if I am, but well, we both did a similar thing. The little hammer on, it's called. Yeah. I got it in 1974. I went to see ZZ Top open for Alice Cooper at the Buffalo War Memorial Auditorium, and we knew the promoter, so we're sitting up close. And I was actually in the shadow of Billy Gibbons' hat because the lights were behind him. And I saw him, play the guitar and go and bend a note and hit the fretboard with his hand. And we couldn't believe our eyes. So I went home and I started diddling around, and that became my thing. Unknown to me, Ed had done the same and discovered it on his own completely. Of course, he was.
What year was that about?
Well, I found it in 74, and Van Halen's record came out in 78, I think.
That's right. It's about 78. But they recorded it a couple of years earlier, at least the demos that they gave to Gene.
Yeah, I've got the Gene Simmons demos, and my iTunes is a very elaborate collection of a lot of stuff. So I've got that stuff. But so he's but it's a great honor that anybody puts my name in the same sentence with his. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy. It was a very sad day when we lost him. And
absolutely.
I played with him. I recorded with him a bit, and he was just a sweet, wonderful, great guy, and a grandmaster at his craft.
Well, as are you.
Very kind.
So how was it? So you wind up playing. That's how I got to know you. The first time I saw you, was exposed to you, was through the David Lee Roth Band.
Yeah.
Okay. The first time I see you, that first of all, an absolutely killer band. Eat 'Em and Smile, great album. The first time I ever saw a Yankee Rose video, all you guys, it looked like it was like a lot of fun. How was first of all, how was it working with Dave at that period? Was he super competitive? Was he like, we got to blow Van Halen out of the water here?
Well, he was the biggest rock star in the world at that time. In 1984, Van Halen was king, and Dave was the king, was the front man. So he was the biggest rock star. But no, he never consciously said, we gotta go after those guys. He just wanted us to be, encourage us to do the best we could. And I remember we listened to the Van Halen album, which came out, I think, before Eat 'Em and Smile did. And I was with Dave when we listened to it. And I thought, it was hard for me to get used to it, unfortunately, because for me, Van Halen was John, Paul, George, and Ringo. It was, Dave, Michael, Alex, and Ed. So even though I was glad to be with them, I was still kind of sad to see Van Halen didn't exist in my favorite format anymore. But he was, we listened, and it was kind of hard. I love Sammy Hagar's voice on the first Montrose record, one of the greatest rock records ever made, I think. Just so great. But in Van Halen, it may be just a psychological thing, but it just didn't work for me. So I remember we got finished, and Dave was kind of, I'm kind of disappointed. I thought we were going to have, a tougher, competition, because admittedly the album was a little bit more commercial and wasn't as raucous, which worked great for Van Halen because they actually ended up selling more records. But he was never, like we got to get those guys. He just wanted to have an awesome band, and I'm very honored that he chose me, and we found Steve and found Greg and put it together. But he's still my hero, and I still love him. And I got a PhD in showbiz from hanging out with him. Right.
How did that whole band come together? I mean, it's a great band. You mentioned Steve. We're talking Steve Vai, okay? But did you have to audition? Did he reach out? Was he like, get me the best musicians at their craft? we have to like go over the top, because that video, man, is over the top. You guys are in the costumes that you're wearing, even the little snippet at the beginning of Yankee Rose, and then all of a sudden, like, that beginning with the guitar, David, we playing. I mean, that whole thing is just like, what a fucking introduction to like David Lee Roth solo, and Billy Sheehan is part of that. And even you're kind of like mugging for the camera, even though I got to say, man, you're probably the coolest guy in the band, that, because you just like, were just like being you. You weren't too over the top, which I kind of loved. But, what was that like? What was that tour like? Dave had to be out of his mind.
It was a life-changing experience. We again, thanks to Dave, he contacted me. I was about to go out to the West Coast to start a tour, Tallis and Yngwie Malmsteen, and contacted me, and I happened to be coming out. So we'll have a meeting when you come out. Okay, cool. And because he wanted me to be in his movie. I said, what? But okay. So I went there. We had our day off to rest before our tour began the next day. And they came to my hotel, picked me up, drove me out to Dave's house, and went out there. Hey, how you doing? Nice to see you again, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, there is a movie, but that's not why I wanted to talk to you. He said the movie, so I wouldn't go spill the beans, said he wanted to start a band. Because he knew that I knew Ed. Right. He was kind of, and he told me straight out, I just quit Van Halen and I want to start a band. It's going to be
his first call, like for a recruitment in a band.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And then he said, let's find a guitar player and drummer and go do it. I always said I'd never leave Tallis for any other band except for Van Halen. So when he asked, I said, close enough.
Yeah, right.
How did you find Steve Vai?
Well, I knew Steve. We were on the same label. And actually, we're beginning to talk a little bit about maybe doing something together. So Dave's original choice was Steve Stevens, who was a spectacular player.
Billy Idol.
But he was, kind of entrenched in Billy Idol, and it probably wouldn't be a good idea to just drop that and jump into something else. So I told Dave, I know another Steve. I got another Steve for you. So I brought Steve Vai in, and of course was the perfect guy, sense of humor, a la Frank Zappa. I played with Frank for years, and brilliant player, wonderful guy, still one of my dearest friends in the world. And so Dave said to us, all right, guys, go out and find me a drummer. So we went out and we auditioned. It's the only auditions that happened was for the drummer. We auditioned about 40 or 50 guys. And
wow.
When Greg Bissonette walked in, before he even played, we knew he was the guy. It's amazing how that kind of ESP happens. I looked at Steve, and Steve looked at me and go, and sure enough, Greg sat down, played amazingly. He sang. He's hilarious. He's a great guy. Still one of my favorite people in the world and a dear friend of mine to this day. So, and then we need a keyboard guy. So I through Yamaha, I asked, you guys got any Yamaha keyboard players? He goes, Brett Tuggle. And Brett came in. Brett's brilliant players, played with everybody. Fleetwood Mac, with you name it. He's just a brilliant singer and keyboard player. So that was our band, and we put the album together and took off.
Do you ever watch Steve Vai play and look at him and just go, I hate you so much. That's how good you are.
No. We get along very well. Well, actually, the whole guitar battle that happened on stage between Steve and I, the first 3 shows, it didn't happen. I go up, do my solo, yay, and Steve do his solo, yay, and then we get done with the show. About 3 shows in, Dave took us aside. He goes, "You guys, that ain't working. It's just not entertaining enough." Dave being master showman, it's got to be like a tractor pull. It's got to be something exciting that people, So he told us, Steve, you go out there and start playing. Billy, you come up behind him, stop and push him aside. You do your thing. Then Steve, and then you chase each other on the stage, and it turns out hilarious and been copied by many other bands, to say the least. But that was Dave's idea, and I thought this kind of exemplifies how hands-on he was and how smart he was to put things together in that fashion.
Were you guys starting to think about Mr. Big while you were playing with David Lee Roth, or did that come afterwards?
That came afterwards. Yeah, after Skyscraper, we weren't all on the same page and it didn't work out. So I wished him well, went off, and I got together with Steve Stevens at first.
Really?
We were going to do a thing, but schedules didn't align, and then I put Mr. Big together.
Yeah, so Trent just brought up Mr. Big, and that was a band that I thought was on the road to superstardom. And it just one day you guys just aren't there anymore. It just seemed to stop. So what happened with that? And then I also had a question, is like, you guys also toured, I think, Mr. Big with Rush. So how is it like Billy Sheehan watching Geddy Lee? Your thoughts on him? So I have kind of two questions there.
I'll write these down. Well, no, we did. Mr. Big did 2 tours with Rush, and they were just the sweetest, nicest, generous people you could ever imagine. And they were so kind. They brought us up for the encore, and we sang. What's the song? Hey, baby, it's 2:45. In the mood, we sang, and I sang with Geddy on the mic, and they were great. They were just fantastic. So that was just an all around amazing experience. I remember when we first were on tour, we didn't want to get in their way and stuff, so we just kind of kept our distance. And they came in there and said, what's the matter? You guys mad at us? Why won't you come into our dressing room? You mean we can? So then we found out that's where the lobster and shrimp were served. So we went in every night and started eating their food. But they were just great people.
How did their crowd accept you?
We did good. We did good. And the Rush guys told us that's the first time they've seen girls in the first 10 rows in a decade. So because we had To Be With You was a hit at that time, and
right,
we did really well with. But Mr. Big, we did great. We did. We had a hit with To Be With You, Just Take My Heart, Green Tin the '60s Mine, and also Wild World remake. So we did great. But the thing we did that was inadvertently wise was we played a lot of foreign markets. We played all over Europe and South America, Southeast Asia, Japan, Russia, everywhere. And so when the U.S. went soft, when Nirvana and Pearl Jam came out and the whole scene shifted, we could play all over the world and sell out places and pack places and still do well. So, and it happened to a lot of bands. They're still successful and still doing great, but you just don't hear about it on MTV, so you think they don't exist. But we went down to South America and play on Santos Beach outside of Sao Paulo in front of 100,000 people on the beach. The show was so big that the police left because they knew they
was this a festival? Was this a festival? Was this a bit? Oh, it was a festival. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we headlined. We were the headline, and was Henry Rollins. Oh God, what's the other band? Henry Rollins. Some other band, I forgot. I'm sorry.
The Scorpions.
No. It was a smaller band. But we went out, and so we're on stage as the show's ending, and we're seeing bonfires out on the military came in. The army actually rolled in to clear the beaches. The cops gave up. They didn't want to know about it. So we did good. And we sold out Budokan almost every Japanese tour, 1 night, 2 night, 3 night. And Thailand, Indonesia. I still get more email from Indonesia than any place in the world. And just all over Europe, we did great. At one point, there was like 4 or 5 Mr. Big copy bands in Italy. They loved the band. So though we dropped off the radar, we were still doing great. I remember the statistic was in Japan when Pearl Jam's record came out, Mr. Big outsold at 40-1 in Japan. That was the actual statistic, because they didn't get the grunge thing. They didn't understand why people were mad and wearing torn up clothes, and it didn't make sense to them. So it was. It can seem that way that we disappeared, but we were there. And then we did actually at one point split up and go our separate ways, and we reconvened in 2009 and had just another great run across Europe, South America, Southeast Asia, a little bit in America, but not as much. It's softer for us here, we admit. But we did great. We're very pleased with it.
Yeah, it was one of those things that always bothered me. It was about. I've always been a huge fan of Mr. Big, and I always thought that as successful as To Be With You and Just Take My Heart were, do you think that was kind of like not a downfall, but did you get pigeonholed a little bit with the slower stuff?
Extreme.
By our observation, it actually almost worked in our favor, because we'd look out into the audience, we'd see 14-year-old girls with braces singing along with Daddy Brother, the heavy stuff, and the kids with Slayer shirts singing To Be With You.
That's
so
awesome.
For once, we were able to break that wall down, and because when I grew up, I'm older, but we didn't have that kind of line between genres. You could go and you could have a couple really different bands on the same bill, and it was cool. Nobody booed anybody or threw shit or anything like that. So that was cool. So unfortunately it's not that much like that anymore. But in that particular instance, it kind of worked out, and we would laugh about it too. That you see the girls come with their mom and dad, just taking them to see Mr. Big C to be with you, and they're out there, we're playing the heavy stuff. So it was actually pretty cool. So
Jeff, you mentioned Extreme, and that actually was one of the reasons why I mentioned that, was because I remember being like 13 or 14. And Extreme was opening up for ZZ Top on a tour, and I had worked all that summer.
That's a weird tour.
It was very weird, but like I saved all my money. I bought my mom a ticket because I needed a ride, and Extreme opens up and they go, listen, people, we all know that you're here to hear 2 songs. So we're going to play them first. And if you don't like it, you can get the hell out. And they opened up with Wholehearted and More Than Words. So the place went ballistic for the first 2 songs.
That's great.
Like you said, the 13, 14-year-old girls that are really getting into those songs. And then they busted into like Decadence Dance and, Get the Funk Out, all the heavier stuff. And the people were just like, they had no idea what the music was.
We'd always do the reverse. We'd always save the hits for the last thing. So they had to sit through the whole show.
Great.
Now, Billy, was there like a falling out between you and Paul at some point that led to the breakup of Mr. Big, or everything's still kind of cool?
Oh, no, not at all. No, Paul and I have been friends through it all. We had a lot in common. He used to come see Tallis play back in, there was a club called Stage One in Pittsburgh. There's also one in Buffalo. Stage One in Pittsburgh. And I remember this tall kid in the audience because the stage was very low. And this one kid was almost like my height when I was on the stage. And I found out later, that guy's a guitar player. Oh, really? Cool. And he was just a young kid. And finally he opened up for us one time. Hey, he sounded good. And I saw him out in LA and I knew of him. So that's why I chose him for Mr. Big. But we've been dear friends for forever. There's very few people that I'm, had a bad falling out with. Generally, even in like when a band breaks up and it gets a little heated, within a couple of months, everybody's cool. I'm not like that.
I don't know if you've ever heard this. I read somewhere. No, this is good. This is good. One of my favorite bands of all time, Iron Maiden, and Steve Harris referred to you as the perfect bass player. Did you ever hear that compliment?
I've heard things of that nature because Steve is he's not only an amazing bass player and a wonderful guy, but he's been very generous to me. And I really appreciate some of the things he said. He's a wonderful guy and I love Iron Maiden. So we did a photo shoot at the Rotosound. Rotosound makes strings. Steve uses them. I use them. John Entwistle, Jocko, Chris Squire, Getty, everybody uses Rotosound.
This is the Mount Rushmore of bass players.
Yeah.
Listen here.
Well, except for me, I'm down in the stones down there in the sand. But
you're the Eddie Van Halen of bass players. You're on the Mount Rushmore.
But it was me, John Entwistle, and Steve Harris for a photo shoot at Rotosound, and I remember we had it right. And me and Steve were going like, hey, let's go talk with John. It was so cool. But yeah, he's a wonderful guy, and I love Iron Maiden.
Listen to those 3 names for bass players. What's the matter? Was Bobby Dahl from Poison busy that day, and they had to ask one of you slackers to fill in for him? Jesus Christ!
Bobby's a good friend too. He's a good guy.
He's a great bass player. I bust balls about Poison, but they're a great band. And
yeah,
speaking
I remember.
of Poison,
well, we were there in LA on the Strip. I got there in 85, so 85, 86, 87. It was like Mardi Gras every night, and the streets were lined with, girls and band guys, and there was a band in every club. But I remember the Poison guys walked around with a boombox playing their song to sell tickets to their shows. They started from. So I give them a lot of credit because they worked hard to make it happen, whether you love them or not.
I do.
Whatever your feeling is about the music. Them. I got to give them a great credit because they made it happen.
Well, the reason I mentioned Poison was the lead-in with your guitar player now. I mean, when CeCe DeVille left Poison and Richie stepped into Poison, that band shifted tremendously. And they went from that real party kind of attitude, and Native Tongue from Poison, as I think their best record from top to bottom. And it never got the respect that it really deserved. But how did you link up with Richie to start the Winery Dogs?
I think he was a DiMarzio guy early on, so I knew him. DiMarzio Pickups, he started to endorse them, and I was been an endorser since since I was in Buffalo a long, long time ago. So we knew each other from then, and he had moved out to LA. So he came to my house a couple times, and I heard him play piano and sang that, wow, this guy's amazing. And then we just, we're friends. We jammed together and hung out and stuff. And then when Paul left Mr. Big, Richie was the perfect guy. He could sing amazingly and play great. But we love Richie, and I loved him in the band, but it's not the same band anymore. It's the same thing with David Lee Roth and Van Halen. It's just not the same. So as much as we loved them, our hearts weren't really as in it as they were before. So we eventually ended up ending. And then Pat, but God rest his soul, Mr. Big Drummer, and I, we jammed together with Richie a lot after that. We were going to do something, but schedules didn't align. And then when Mike Portnoy got in touch with me, wanted to do a band thing, and a guitar player who sings, and I don't know why I didn't think of Richie, because and I had probably just seen him the week earlier. I go, I wonder who, and then sure enough, Eddie Trunk goes, Richie Kotzen. Of course. So we got Richie Kotzen, and the first day or two, we laid down the basis of a lot of that first Winery Dogs record, and that's one of my favorite records I've ever played on.
Is it that quick or that easy where someone will give you a phone call and a band just kind of comes together that way?
It can be. And usually when it does it that way, it's very organic and natural, and things fall in place and you're doing the right thing. If there's a lot of shenanigans and I'm not sure and contract stuff and this is probably not going to happen. And if it does, it's probably going to fall apart. So we sat down. There's a drum kit there in Richie's studio. Mike Portnoy sat it. I had one of Richie's bass off his studio wall, and we just started playing. And hold on, let me go in and start the recording. Okay, take it again. And then
What do you start playing when you just guys get into? Are you playing a cover song? You just kind of like free form jamming? Like what do you?
Free form organic. We didn't do a lot of cover songs in the Winery Dogs, so people know us a lot from "Fooled Around and Fell in Love." Mm-hmm. That was one of the only ones we've done. But once in a while, we've done a couple. So we just went in and and Richie's a prolific writer. Mike is a great writer as well. I write a lot, so we just started pumping it out, and in no time we had that record, and it blew all of our minds, the kind of success it had right out of the bat.
I'll never forget hearing Elevate the first time.
Yeah.
I didn't know the name of the band. I heard it, and the first thing I thought was, wow, this new Chris Cornell song is fantastic. Because he sounds so much like him. I mean, come on, you can't deny that. He sounds just like Chris Cornell, and I heard it, I'm like, wow, this has got to be something. And I looked it up, and I was like, get the fuck out of here. Like, first of all, it's a 3-piece, number one. It's 3 of my favorite musicians all in one. I'll never forget the time I met Mike Portnoy. They were Dream Theater was doing Falling Into Infinity. They were recording it in the studio that I had my studio in. And now Mike's not a very tall guy, right?
No.
His calves are this big. He has biggest. Oh my God, I've never seen a man who's like 5'5" with like 32-inch circumference calves in my entire life. It's ridiculous.
AJ Pearl.
Oh my God, they're ridiculous. But yeah, man, that first Winery Dogs record, to me, it's one of the best rock records of the last fucking 10, 15 years by far.
You're very kind. Yeah, I really, and the success it had, I remember we played in Paris. It's our first tour, first record, first everything. And there's no MTV to really pump it in like there used to be, or radio. So it's word of mouth. And we played a show in Paris. It was so crowded. All I could think of is, the only way we could get another person in here is you could cut them up in pieces and shove them in, because you couldn't fit another person in the place. And we just had an amazing run. I've got photos from Barcelona, Spain, where the whole place is like a 5-level auditorium, and the whole place is just lined with like completely sold out, thousands of people, and the big Winery Dogs logo there is like, what the heck? So we were really thankful. It went over very well.
When are we getting a new album?
ASAP.
Is it recorded?
Unfortunately now, travel restrictions and the COVID nonsense and all that. But I speak with Richie often, and Mike will be in there too. So the first chance we get together in a room. And we purposely, after the second record, everybody expected, first record tour, second record tour, third record. Hold on a second. Every time that happens, bands hit a wall, because in my humble opinion, a lot of great a lot of bands, their first record is great and the second record isn't. Why is that? Because they spent their whole life recording, touring, playing, and then that first record is the culmination of everything they've done. Now they got 6 months to do the next one. So it's just not enough time. So we lucked out on the second record with the Winery Dogs, Hot Streak, I believe, and it was very well received. We did
great record.
Better sales even. And but we thought, instead of just getting into this cycle, let's do our thing and then reconvene like we did before the first record, where we all been off doing our thing. We all got different stories to tell, get together in a room and start writing like that again. So that's kind of the idea.
Have you been doing a lot of writing during COVID? Because I'm expecting a lot of great albums to be coming out, because this was a time to sit down and write. Yeah.
Well, we were just mixing a brand new Talus record. So that's pretty cool. Talus is my band in Buffalo.
First band, right?
Several versions. The version that it was when I left to join David Lee Roth, we refer to it as version 2. I think it's actually version 8 or 9, in fact. And so we got those guys again, and we did a record of all the songs we did in '85. We thought, well, we should update them and like make the lyrics. No, let's do it, even though it might be a little goofy and dated. Let's do it like we did it then. And we did. And we're all so pleased with it. So I think people are going to enjoy the record. They're a little time machine back to 1985. And I think people will enjoy it.
You've played, listen, you've been in, we even failed to mention, you played in UFO, which is also one of the all-time great bands. How did that come about? Were you good friends with Michael Schenkel, or did you kind of tour with them and things kind of like jived? How did the UFO connection come about?
Well, we were lucky in Buffalo that we were the big band, so by default, the local Buffalo promoters became our managers, and that was Harvey and Corky Productions. And so when a band would come through town that needed more ticket sales, whatever, they put us on the bill to help boost it, and then the band would see us and maybe make friends or not, who knows. So UFO came through. They were supposed to come through with AC/DC, but UFO couldn't get over the border. So now they finally did. They're doing a show in Buffalo. Talus opens up. They like the band. They remembered me, apparently. And then in 1979, Michael Schenker called me to come work on his first solo record. I didn't end up recording it because Michael fell on some hard times there. So '83 comes around, and I got asked to join UFO.
And Pete Way, I think, left the band?
Yeah. So I did a European tour with them. And funny, today I got an email from a guy named Chris Robinson, who was my tech on that tour. And I haven't heard from him probably since 1983. And he's just reminiscing about all the shenanigans that went on with UFO. When I got home from UFO, the movie Spinal Tap came out. So we went to the movies to see it. And I'm sitting there going, is this supposed to be funny? Right? Because I had just lived exactly that. So I was kind of pissed off about it. Later on, of course, it's hilarious. But it was amazing guys, but they were on hard times. So, yeah, I did the UFO thing. And what a great honor. I love that band. They're always one of my favorites.
So you've played and you've recorded with like really some of the best musicians who've ever lived. So the question is, best or favorite guitar player, best favorite drummer you've played with?
Well, guitar players cause too much trouble. I'm going to pass on that one. And drummers, I can always default to one guy, Dennis Chambers. Dennis Chambers, I play with in a kind of a more fusion thing called Niacin, bass drums and B3, no vocals, and he's the grandmaster, and he was the favorite drummer of Mr. Big drummer Pat Torpey, who was also what a great player. But it's tough to pick because I have been very lucky to play with amazing people. Mike Portnoy is great. I did a session with Vinnie Colaiuta, with Kenny Aronoff, with lots of guys that I'm forgetting. And guitarists too, Steve, Paul, Tony McAlpine, Steve Lukather, a lot of guys. And so it's pretty cool. I'm very honored. It's kind of cool once you get in a band and you get some records out. You're kind of all in the same club, so a lot of times you won't even know each other. Say, hey, yeah, how's it going? And it'll end up being a thing where you end up playing together. It's kind of, you have the common ground with everybody. So you see somebody might not even be from a band that's your genre or your thing. Hey, aren't you the guy from? Yeah. Oh, I love you. Really? Oh, cool. So it's a wonderful community in that respect. So I've been lucky to play with some mind-blowing players, and I always come away from it knowing more about music and playing.
Do you still love music?
I am as excited now as I'm probably more excited than I was when I was 16. I get up every day and I sit here in my little studio and practice. I got all my basses up on a wall there. You can see them all lined up. There's a couple more walls that are filled with it too. It gets out of control.
Yeah, I'll send you my address. You can send me one. It's totally fine.
But I never had all. When I lived in LA, it was when I finally got some success. And started accumulating instruments, but I could never have them home because there wasn't enough room. So now we're very grateful to have this beautiful home here in Nashville, and I got all the basses and guitars up on the walls, and so it's nice to have them within arm's length all the time. But I'm excited about playing and learning new stuff, and I got a bunch of my basses out here now, and I spent about 2 or 3 hours yesterday just working on a couple of little things, and it's exciting. And every day I discover some new thing. I had a kid a couple of years ago send an email to me. I played bass for 6 months and I'm bored. What should I do? And I just said, quit, bro. Yeah. I've been doing it for over 50 years, and I'll be on the driving home and I go, oh, I got to get home. I got an idea. I can run to my bass and try it out.
I saw something cool about you. And this is why I asked that question. I saw you were teaching a master class on bass. Is that, a guy like you said, 50 years in the business, have played with some of the greatest musicians, been in some of the biggest bands, that is taking the time to teach people this instrument. Dude, I can't respect that more.
Oh, that's very kind. Well, I do really enjoy helping musicians, my fellow musicians, not everybody really, but musicians especially, because we're in a little camaraderie together. So some guys, would, I don't know if I'm good enough to the master. Goes, no. Come on. All levels welcome. And I find I learn a lot from beginners, and I see how they're launching and what they're going for and why. And in their mind, they don't know enough yet to really figure it all out. So they instinctively do this one thing. Why is that? And it's kind of really enlightening sometimes. So some guys that are great players sit down, we'll exchange some ideas, a different point of view. But I'm not a teacher, and I don't give lessons, because I don't have that discipline. I quit high school in my senior year because I even asked my mom for permission because I just was not my thing.
You should go back, Billy. This whole rock thing really hasn't fucking worked out for you.
It's all right. My Kenmore East High School in Kenmore, New York, the principal is a bass player who knew me from back in the day. So he had me come in and get my honorary thing. So
that's awesome.
I'm good now. So.
So here's a question I want to ask you. So if there's one band that's out there now and just happens that their bass player breaks their arm and they can't play, and you'd want to fill in for this band just for like a tour, who would it be?
That's a good question. Who do I go out with? Well, geez, almost anybody.
Ghost?
We toured with
like Brian.
We toured with Brian Adams a bunch in Mr. Big. Great. Wow, he's so awesome, and his songs are great. And now he's playing bass. Brian, let's let me play bass. And
that's great.
Over there. That would be cool. But
is there a new band that you like? A new band that you would go out with?
Probably. I'm trying to. I'm lost at the moment to recall something. I'm sorry.
Rival Sons.
Pretty great.
I could see you, jamming with Rival Sons. I
think it would be cool, like some super heavy band though. So I would like to. I got up and jammed with Phil Anselmo and guys from Slayer and guys from Exodus.
Jeez,
and we had a riot. That was great, and it was actually fun to play. So something like that would be cool. Something that's way out, way out. I got up and Zach Brown played in Nashville at the Bridgestone Arena, sold out.
Right.
And his percussionist is a friend of mine. I said, well, come on down and we'll come on up and play a song. And okay. So I got up and he introduced me and we played Whipping Post. And
oh, wow.
it was great. So completely different thing than what I'm into, but it was what an amazing night. And he was awesome too.
How long are you in Nashville now?
A little over 3 years.
It's probably like one of the most fun cities in the world.
It really
is. My opinion.
It really is.
Did you move down there just because of like the income tax thing or just because of the great songwriting that's down there?
Both. LA's fallen apart, sadly. I love LA. And when I went there in LA, I was the biggest LA booster. So many people from Buffalo moved out to LA because I was there, friends and associates and other musicians. But sadly, it's really in a tough spot. And I'm touring a lot. My wife's home. I was dangerous there. So we had to get out. But it's Music City. And where I'm at now, I don't really need to be in a city. I wouldn't go out and play in LA. I'd go to LAX to fly to where a tour starts. So if you've been to LA, LAX is a hellish, awful, terrible, dreadful thing. So now we're 12 minutes from the airport, and the airport is clean, open, and there's no big lines. Got to get on the flight. Got to make a connection, but I don't care. It's so easy to get in and out of this city. So I fly to whatever, connect to New York, fly to Europe, or fly to Asia, or whatever. So I really only needed to be near an airport. So we did leave the California situation, which, as I said, sadly is they're not doing well out there. And a lot of my friends called me to tell me which restaurants now have gone belly up, that they're never coming back. And it's terrible. It's dreadful.
We've had so many past guests, two that come to mind, Katie Cole and Mitch Malloy, also LA, now residing in Nashville. You guys are building like a really great music scene down there.
It's Music City. It really is. We got so many people here. I think Tom Peterson from Cheap Trick is here.
Oh, wow.
A guy I work with a lot here, Ray Lugier, as a drummer I left out, who was one of my favorite people and drummers too. Me and Ray, we have a production company together. We play on a lot of records and do recording for people and stuff like that. So he's here. Just a bunch of guys, a lot of bands. A lot of guys are coming too. A lot of people that I've heard are making a move here. Yeah, I think he's here.
Yeah. He has, Jeff, I don't know if you know this, Jack White from the White Stripes has a record store down in Nashville called Third Man Records, and has one of those old fashioned, it looks like a telephone booth. And I think you pay like $20 or $25 and you can bring your guitar in there and record direct to vinyl inside this.
Oh, wow.
Really, really cool. I want to ask you a business question.
Yes, sir.
And this is something that I'm not a super huge fan of this one artist, but I do respect her a lot. Taylor Swift.
Okay.
I don't know if Jeff, you know what happened with her, that Scooter Braun, her old manager, bought her catalog for like $300 million. Right. So she has basically no.
All I know is that everyone's selling that catalog these days. I saw Dylan sold it for $300 million. And I think Neil Young also just sold his catalog.
But she kind of got it stolen away from her. So her response to that was to re-record every album that she ever did on her own, because she has the financial resources to do that. And she's doing it strictly to diminish the value of her old catalog.
Yes. What would you like me to say?
Well, I'm just saying, like, do you think that's is that like a really big, like, fuck you to the music business, or is that an artistic, brilliant move that she's doing? Well, or is it both?
I know when I listen to a song as a fan on a record, I can hear it again with the most microscopic change. Go, wait, that wasn't in there. That's not the song. I remember there was a flip side of my first single I ever bought, 8 Miles High by the Byrds. Flip side was a song called Why. So I got all the Byrds' greatest hits. Oh, Why is on the. It's not the same. That's not it. And I looked and tried. I got all these Byrds compilations. Finally, they came up with a box set, and deep in it was Why, the radio version, and that was the version. Finally, this is exactly the one that I remember, and I loved it. So as a fan, I'm sure I'm not alone. The littlest, tiniest change, and Frank Zappa did that too on a lot of his early records. He went in and remixed them. So I thought, I haven't heard this for so long. I put it on, I go, wait. What's the sax solo doing here? It wasn't there before, and it really threw me. So I don't know if it's a real good idea to mess around with what millions of people have fallen in love with. It's like, your girlfriend goes in and gets a nose.
You're a purist.
Yeah. A lot of people are. They don't want to hear the another version of it. But I can't say anything on anyone else's business because I don't know. But I do know that no matter what happens with anything later, at some point you sign something. At some point, you did something that allowed that door to open for somebody to come in and do that, because you can't without your signature on something. You signed something away. So unfortunately, maybe you got bad advice from a lawyer that didn't know. Maybe your parents were looking out for you and they didn't know. So it's tough. You got to watch out in the business, what you're signing and what it means. We all do in any business.
Absolutely.
In any transaction, you got to read it and you got to know about it. And if you don't, hire somebody. And a lot of times people get, well, you can use my lawyer, because no, it's a conflict of interest. I can't use your lawyer. I got to find my own lawyer. And a proper manager or whatever would welcome you to bring in an outside manager. California is pretty tough. If you don't get a lawyer and you sign something, they can null the contract. You got to have legal representation, and there can't be a conflict of interest in that. It's very wise. I'm not sure if that's the case here, or if it is anymore. It's been a while since I got involved in things of this nature, but it's probably a pretty boring thing too.
It's amazing how fast this hour has gone. Wick, what do you have planned for, before we wrap it up? What do you have planned for the summer? What's going on? You got any tours happening? What's going on with you?
We're waiting to hear, but I'm afraid. I hope it's not. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong, that there may not be shows until 2022, which sucks. It was awful. I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. I'm not a rich man, but I'm okay. We got money in the bank. We're okay. Our bills are paid. We don't owe any debt. We're good. But crew guys, lighting companies, sound companies, touring companies, bus drivers, catering, venue personnel, security. It's tough.
How are they making a living?
I know. So this has been horrible on everybody. My personal opinion, I usually leave out because it's controversial, but I really don't think it's that big of a deal. I remember when it first hit, I looked up CDC website. What was the death toll for the seasonal flu prior to COVID? It was 79,400 people. 80,000 people died of the seasonal flu. Nobody said anything about it. There was no masks or panic or freak out. So now, admittedly, it's a flu. It's probably a very severe one. Just look at the numbers, and the CDC's already been caught with their pants down a couple times, pumping up the numbers on how many people have died. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why would you want to make it look worse than it is? So, but I play by the rules. I got the mask, social distance. I don't want to put anybody in jeopardy, and so we're playing by the rules. We're being cool. I don't want to violate anyone else's sensibilities about it. But I
agree with you 100%.
Yep. I want to do this real quick. I want to put you on the spot, and I want you to think. I want the first thing that comes off your head. Favorite songs to play live for every band that you've been in, and we're going to do it real quick. Talus.
Sinks the teeth into that.
David Lee Roth.
Going Crazy.
Mr. Big.
Great song.
Mr. Big would be Daddy, Brother, Lover, Little Boy.
Yes. That's what I wanted to hear. Winery Dogs.
I'm No Angel.
Oh, God damn you. I love that song. Sons of Apollo.
I'm Coming Home.
That's how we end the show, Jeffrey.
Billy Sheehan, thank you so much, man. I was super excited for this show.
Well,
Sean was texting me, making fun of me because I was all nervous and stuttering. Listen, I grew up with you. I remember going to the gym and listening to that record. You've been one of the guys I put on that pedestal. So
well, you're very kind.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Without really guys like you buying tickets and T-shirts and records, I wouldn't be here. I always tell people everything I have comes from somebody buying a T-shirt, a ticket, or a record, and I don't forget that, and I appreciate it very much. So I'm glad you were there, and glad you enjoyed it. That's
when touring comes around again, when you play New Jersey, when you play Starland Ballroom. I am 3 minutes away from Starland Ballroom. If you want to come over, I will give you a bass lesson.
Thank you. I'm wondering what those the low. It's a letter or something. It's G or B. Oh, E. I think it's an E string.
It's an E string. Yeah.
I always confused that.
Start learning, Billy. You got a long way to go.
It's about time I start hitting that thing, I guess.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Billy. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. And send me a link and I'll post it to my social media so you get more hits and people can enjoy our interview today.
Absolutely.
You're a good man, Billy Sheehan.
Takes one to know
You're
one.
a good man.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, everybody.
See ya.